Let's begin by mentally traveling back to the spring and summer of 2020. In May of that year, George Floyd had been murdered by a police officer, and his death set off months of outrage around the country and on the streets of downtown Portland. Many people turned out and marched peacefully, but many others did not. It was a summer of struggle between protesters and law enforcement. Let's zero in on one night in particular, June 2nd, 2020. It was the sixth night of protests that summer, and it was a night when things really started to get heated between protesters and Portland police. Here's part of our coverage from that night.
Just after 9 o'clock, there was a skirmish between police and a splinter group of protesters. It appears police used tear gas and flashbangs to disperse the rowdy crowd.
The night started out with a peaceful demonstration, but as you saw, fighting between protesters and law enforcement got more intense as the night went on. We covered it on the story the next day. At one point, around midnight, this happened.
Again, we've been watching police basically follow protesters who have sort of scattered throughout the city. We can only assume this is going to continue for a while, but oh wow. That was the multiple police cruisers just driving through that intersection. Allison, producer, is this live? You guys know what's happening? This is live.
Yeah, I looked a little close to some of those people down there.
Yeah.
The clashes between protesters and police continued for much of the night. Of course, you know it was the first of many that happened that summer.
Our photographer in Sky 8 did see people pushing back against the fencing, and we definitely saw fireworks going off. We also saw police using tear gas and flashbang type devices. Now keep in mind, this started a couple blocks from Pioneer Square, where thousands of people were still having their peaceful rally.
Portland police used flashbangs, and at one point they even started spray painting protesters' cars to try and track people down later. And they used tear gas against the protesters, a lot of tear gas. Now we're getting an idea of just how much they used. A new study from a group called Forensic Architecture modeled how much tear gas they estimated was deployed throughout the night in Portland on June 2nd, 2020. Forensic Architecture is a research agency based in London. They typically look into cases of war crimes and human rights violations around the world. For instance, right now they're also investigating Russian airstrikes in Ukraine and allegations of abuse in Jerusalem. But they're also looking into the way tear gas is used in Portland. And what they found was that Portland police deployed so much tear gas that the concentration of gas that night in the air was thousands of times higher than established safe levels. The researchers used videos from social media and news reports from the night and reports from people on the ground, along with public records, to create a simulation of where tear gas was deployed throughout the city and when. They went to measure the concentration and the spread of the gas throughout the night. Here's some of the video they published in their study. This is a look at how they sorted through the data.
With weapons experts from the Omega Research Foundation, we identified different discharge and explosion patterns in videos from June 2nd. These patterns allowed us to assign each munition to a munition type, rule out those which likely didn't carry any chemical agents, and estimate the minimum quantities of CS and OC in each munition type.
Then they took that information and modeled out how much gas would have been present throughout the city. They say they found at least 138 chemical munitions used across 25 blocks over the course of about 3.5 hours. They also simulated the weather conditions from that day to see how the gas would have spread through the air. Here's what they found on that.
Concentrations of CS reached up to 67 milligrams per meter cubed. The Federal Health and Safety Administration considers that 2 milligrams per meter cubed is immediately dangerous to life or health, a threshold known to the PPB according to their own documents.
They say in some locations the concentration was far above those established safe levels for a total of 73 minutes.
We measured airborne concentrations in a further 15 locations across downtown Portland. These included locations within the protest area, but also others, hundreds of meters away. The 2 milligram threshold was exceeded in every location. In many locations, concentrations were recorded above 100 milligrams per meter cubed. The highest recorded concentration was 4,500 milligrams per meter cubed, more than 2,000 times the limit considered life-threatening.
They say the tear gas then washed into the Willamette River, threatening marine life and farmland downriver. However, Portland's Bureau of Environmental Services later took a look at the city's stormwater and sediment downtown. They did find elevated levels of the chemicals from the tear gas in the storm drains, but they say those levels dropped by the time they reached the river. As for the effects on humans, well, that's another story. Adverse health conditions were recorded that summer, both in people who attended protests, but also in bystanders, people who had nothing to do with the protests or the riots, but happened to be living or working nearby when Portland police used tear gas. Here's some of what we heard throughout the summer.
My cycle would get much heavier. I would bleed profusely. The pain was extreme, and I would get really bad headaches, which was something I didn't really get before.
It felt as if someone was giving you mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and they were blowing actually toxins into your lungs. It was that severe and that direct, and it has a burning sensation like never before.
I have many accounts of people being hurt around me, people doubling over in pain, throwing up. It is mentally traumatizing because I'm going places I can't not look over my shoulder, and when stuff hits the ground, I jump.
Researchers at Kaiser Permanente's Center for Health Research in Portland have been studying the effects of tear gas exposure on people in Portland. In 2021, Kaiser surveyed more than 2,000 people about what tear gas had done to them. It's the largest tear gas study of its kind. 94% of the people reported adverse health effects. We asked the lead researcher about what they found.
So what our research showed was that, for people after they were exposed to tear gas, even when they left the vicinity and, walked away, they were not having dissipation of those health impacts right away. So they were having burning eyes, itchy skin, coughing, nausea, kind of in the immediate. But these symptoms were lasting for them through days and even into weeks, where people were having gastrointestinal issues, lots of nausea. There were people that were having prolonged headaches, people that were continuing to have breathing issues, people reporting, eye issues, dizziness, insomnia. So kind of a wide range across physiological symptoms. And then, of course, we had people reporting that they were having changes in their menstrual function. And that was a little bit of even longer term.
That directly contradicts what Portland police told us about tear gas at the time.
Which is a substance that if you walk out of it, you really stop feeling the effects almost right away. And you'll have some residual effects that at least I've encountered all the times I've been exposed to it, where I might get a little bit of an aftertaste, but you're functional a lot faster and you suffer a lot less long.
The researchers at Kaiser say the new study corroborates what people were reporting about the health impacts after being exposed to tear gas.
We did know that people were exposed, and we asked people to report on the number of days that they were exposed, but we had no way of establishing what types of concentrations they would have been exposed to. And we were also limited at that time, not even understanding which exact chemical agents they were exposed to. So really what this study is showing us is kind of that range and what the exposure is, and ultimately showing that based on OSHA standards, the concentrations that were being deployed in this scenario well exceed what would be considered a safe use, and that in fact that these levels and these concentrations are known to cause health issues for people.
We asked Portland police about the new study. They said they're still dealing with pending litigation, and so they're not going to comment. Just a few days after the night in the study, protesters sued because of the tear gas use and the effects. A judge barred Portland Police Bureau from using tear gas except for instances in which a person's life or safety is at risk. The judge found that Portland police were using the gas against peaceful protesters. And months later, the judge found the police were violating that order, and the city settled eventually with protesters, paying them $250,000. So, what do you think about this new report? I know the state of downtown Portland during the summer of 2020 brings up all sorts of emotions for people across the Pacific Northwest. Share your thoughts, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090.